House was 11540 Southwest Cole Lane in Tigard, Oregon. 1 second. Ugh. Stretching real fast. How long have I been talking by now? Fuck. Getting hot. I feel like turning the fan on, but I don't want that to blow into the microphone. Anyway, yeah. We moved into the house. The people finally got the fuck out of there. We moved in there. We got all our boxes in and everything. It was 11540 Southwest Cole Lane in Tigard, Oregon, like I said. Right on the outskirts of Portland. We lived here for slightly over 1 full year. And it wasn't good times for me. My daily schedule for about 6 months there was wake up at 7 a.m., do construction with Darren until 4 p.m., and then do online high schooling up in my room until raid time, and then raiding as much as I could with them writing my ass about it. All night, and then going to bed. It was a shit schedule, but, it was what it was. By this point, Darren had started his physical abuse. There were a lot of little incidents, but there's 4 specific events that stand out in my head with him. This man attacked me as if I was another man. It was very, very beyond corporal punishment. This dude has fought me as if I was putting a fight up. Like, I've been bloodied. I've been strangled on more than one occasion. I've been thrown. He did everything but molest me. He saved that for my sister. But all that wasn't as evil as what he had saved for my mom. During the second half of our stay here in this address, my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer. We were struggling financially, but luckily my mom's mom, who was still around at the time, took care of most expenses, like I said earlier. Regardless, while my mom was sitting there on the toilet or laying there in bed crying and screaming in pain, Darren was taking the medication that he was supposed to be dispensing to her. And he was selling it for crack. And then one day, just before my mom started her chemotherapy, he decided to ingest all of her pills to try and kill himself. Instead, what he did was rack up a massive hospital bill for his liver and prolong my mom's recovery, because he was her only way to get to the hospital. I was still young to drive, and he had taken her away from all of our friends and help. And to have to sit there with your mom while she endures that kind of pain, while you have to watch her body literally eat itself away from the inside. All you want is for that to subside in any way possible. And the quickest way to make that happen is with pain medication. And when you know that there's this man who has caused so much terror upon you and your family, and he's out there selling that medication that the doctors prescribed so that she wouldn't go through what she's going through right there in front of you. And I mean, we wouldn't know when or if he was going to be coming back. So, even worse, we didn't know how long it would take for the cancer to kill her without treatment. Without the treatment, we weren't able to get her to the chemotherapy and all that. So those are hours that are the darkest thing I've ever dealt with. I'll never, ever forget throughout the years, but specifically these couple weeks there in 2008, I'll never forget her screaming for death to take her. To be in that much physical pain is so beyond my comprehension. To be in so much physical pain. I've never had my body hurt so bad that I was willing to give up everything for it to stop. To just end my existence on the spot. It was that bad. You get the idea. And it was a very, very dark time for me. So yeah. This is right. This is right. This is right about the time that the house market is doing whatever bullshit it was doing with Obama and shit in 2008 and all that, and the economy fucking going haywire. So we lose the home just after my mom's chemo. Luckily, she was for the most part cancer free, but she was super weak from the chemo. The idea of chemotherapy is to steamroll your anatomy every day until you're successful in getting cancer out. You're poisoning yourself with some type of radiation and quite literally breaking your body till the cancer falls out. So while a lot of older patients such as my mom may end up getting the cancer out, they're a lot of the time too weak afterwards to make a full recovery. By the time my mom was done with her cancer, she was so small and skinny, and they had her colon routed to a colostomy bag in the front of her stomach, which was it always humiliated her in public. It was just, it always makes sounds and stuff. It was a 4-year decline after 2008 to her death after the chemo. But let's move on with the story. So yeah, we get kicked out of our home, and in like a week or two, Kelly and I were on a plane towards San Antonio, Texas, to stay with Darren's sister Carol and their family while Darren built a trailer and used it to carry the shit down to meet us there. Since Carol and her husband Tom owned a small summer house, and they were gonna lend it to us in the middle of fucking nowhere. I mean, it was our only option as a place to stay other than a shelter. So, yeah, Kelly and I stayed with them for about 2 months. It took longer than expected because their way down was a disaster, of course. First they start leaving, and my mom gets sick and shits all over herself and shits all over the place, and she's bleeding everywhere, and they have to rush her to the hospital. And then they get that taken care of, and they get her all stitched up, and They try to head out for a second time, and Darren's ghetto ass homemade trailer breaks and drops our shit. So he had to get that fixed somehow, and whatever. They eventually made it down, and the day after that, we were in the summer house. We stayed there until the middle of August 2009. Let me take a sip of water again. I made the I know it was August 2009 because I made the Valenier video there, and I uploaded that on August 11th. That was just before we left, so we were only there for about a month or two. Somehow my mom, or maybe it was Darren, met this nice middle-aged blonde woman that decided to let us stay at one of her houses if we paid her whatever we could. It was the place was 2923 Burnside Drive, San Antonio, Texas. It was 2 bedrooms, but I was able to set myself up in the corner of the living room since Kelly wanted her privacy. Meant I couldn't jack off or anything, but it was whatever. Didn't live there too long. We had a nice guy staying with us, Chris. He was an older guy who didn't talk much. Like I said, he was pretty nice. I got super sick for about a month while we were there. For a long time while we were there. And he helped me in the middle of the night. And yeah, he was a good guy. Of course, I later came to find out that he was living with us because he was Darren's source of heroin, and he would dispense it to my mom and himself nightly. Until one day the cops came and surrounded the place looking for Darren. They sent me out there with my hands up to talk to the police on the phone and everything, and it was scary as shit. And they wanted me to tell them that Darren wasn't there and stuff. But I told him Darren was there. But until that happened, you can't just do heroin in the same house as not heroin people. So they had to stop my online schooling to get me out of there. And they sent me to MacArthur High School, my first physical high school. And that was a mess. I remember my first day there being out there in the middle of the big ass courtyard during lunch. I was so severely distressed because of the sudden extreme change of social climate. I was just looking down at my backpack and shaking. I'll never forget that. I was trying to write down some thoughts, but I couldn't get anything to write because I was just fucking. It was almost like a shock. It was so bad. I don't think you're supposed to go from, living in this one bedroom up in the corner of a house for 2 years or whatever, and then just suddenly being launched into fucking into the middle of high school for the first time. You know what I'm saying? You don't know anybody and all that. I would do my best during my school time there at MacArthur in ninth grade, and I would do my best to just go unnoticed and just lay low. But let me tell you something about teenage girls. They feel like they're on a mission to save the planet, and it's fucking annoying. If you're a teenage girl and you're listening to this, please stop this. They will sniff you out if you try to just go unnoticed. So like, these girls come up to me, and it's like, really, you really want to know how I got here? Like they're like, oh, why are you just like, you really want to know how I got to this point? Like, you don't have. I made one friend there named Marisol, but she stopped talking to me. You can find her on my Facebook or whatever, but she was cunty. She was cool for a while, but then her friends are like, who's that? And then she just stopped talking to me. But so as you can tell, my tolerance for the high school bullshit went over real fast. This was the high school I was going to when I made that video talking about, and I think I ended up uploading it to this channel as well. In fact, I'm sure I did. When I made this channel, I talked about. Yeah, it's one of the videos that I uploaded along with all the other talking videos that I had uploaded to my previous channel when I switched them over to this channel when it was created. I talked about how I got in trouble for not complying with the Pledge of Allegiance and such. So, as you can imagine, it was a hard time, but luckily it was short-lived. I spent like 3 months there, max. We lived there until early December when my grandma was terminally hospitalized. My mom wanted to be there with her mom, who lived here in Houston, because she was dying in the hospital. Just of natural shit. One day she fell in her kitchen after one too many drinks, and I guess she never quite got back up. They fixed whatever was the original problem in the hospital, but during the process she got an infection, and it was just one of those things, and her body shut down in her sleep after she suddenly stopped taking in oxygen. But yeah, my mom wanted her to be there with my mom wanted to be there with her mom for all that, which actually didn't end up happening because my mom was unable to force herself to sit there while while her mother gasped for air for like 3 or 4 days with her before coming back. Because I guess she had signed a no resuscitation thing. I don't know what it was. Then Shelly died hours after. And it's funny because she felt so weak for not being able to stay there during her mom's final moments. But her not being able to do that and admitting that she wasn't able to do that, to me, made it so much easier for me when my mom died, my mother, because while it did hurt, it didn't torment me when I stopped being around my mother after, her brain had shifted and she was slipping away. Her last month of life, I didn't leave my house. I mean, well, the high rise at the time, I just stayed there and waited to wake up to the voicemail, which is exactly what happened, and that allowed me to retain at least a semi-sane image of her during our last times together. Because when the body shuts down, people's minds get all scrambled and they lose themselves rapidly. It's fucking scary to watch, and the best thing you can do is retract yourself from the person at that point and let nature run its course. Anyway, I'm getting too ahead of myself again, so let's move on. We're almost done here, I hope. So I mentioned the cop story with them surrounding the place and me ratting Darren out just because Darren's a dick and I don't care, and I would come in as shampoo, so fuck him. During that, the cops found heroin and syringes and all that good stuff in their bathroom, and after that, it didn't take long before the nice blonde-haired lady kicked us out. But it just so happens that this happened right as my grandmother, who was, like I said, was hospitalized. This happened just as my grandmother was leaving her home vacant for us. Well, not for us, but she had left it vacant. So it was very convenient is what I'm saying. So she lived alone, and it was cool. So Darren had just got 7 months or so, and we packed whatever we had left by this point into my grandma's car, since we were using that too now, and drove it up here to Houston.